Heavy rain, hail, and strong winds are sweeping through 13 of China's provinces. It marks the start of this year's flood season. Long lines to get tested for the CCP virus grow in Guangzhou city. Fears over the variant first found in India are still on the rise. The origins of the CCP virus continues to puzzle the world about exactly where it came from, but the U.S. may soon release more information in the coming months. In a tit-for-tat move, Beijing evens the score on America's recent sanctions. The communist regime is now targeting former commissioner of the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom, Johnnie Moore. And more financial penalties levied on Hong Kong media tycoon Jimmy Lai. Hong Kong authorities under Beijing's thumb are threatening two major banks with jail time if they do business with Lai's accounts. Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Weather woes continue to plague many parts of China. Heavy rain, hail, and strong winds are sweeping through 13 provinces. Numerous local meteorological departments are issuing weather warnings. Some locations saw an hourly rainfall of nearly 3 inches. Videos circulating online show winds that are so strong they are able to pull large trees out from the root and blow off fences and structures attached to buildings. Due to the severe weather, Beijing Airport had to cancel over 230 flights. Affected regions include Shanghai in eastern China, Liaoning province in northeast China, Guangdong province in south China, and Beijing's neighboring province Hebei, among others. Heavy rain and strong winds come amid other ongoing weather troubles in China. As flood season kicks in, 79 rivers in South China are already above flood warning levels. Now we turn to the CCP virus or coronavirus pandemic in China. Fears over the Indian variant are still on the rise. This comes as authorities conduct mass testing in South China's Guangdong province. Several days ago, a woman infected with the Indian variant went to Guangdong. Soon after, authorities classified her local area as a medium risk region. Schools are reportedly closed. Officials started a round of mass testing, and they already tested over 500,000 people as of Thursday. The Indian variant is a new variant first found in India. The World Health Organization has warned that the variant may be highly contagious. So far, the Indian variant has spread to multiple locations in China, including the East Coast, the South Coast, and the Southwest. The origins of the CCP virus remain a puzzle, but the U.S. will likely release a report on it in another 3 months.
President Biden said Thursday that he will likely release a report on the origins of the CCP virus. It is expected to detail the U.S. intelligence community's findings. A reporter asked Biden if he will release the report after 90 days.
Yes, that's unless there's something I'm unaware of.
Biden said on Wednesday he has ordered aides to find answers to where the virus came from. It's possible that it originated from a Chinese research lab instead of in nature. Biden adds that the U.S. intelligence community is trying to find out more about this theory. A debate is going on within the Biden administration over the virus origins. The upcoming report may be able to shed some light on it.
The Biden administration is one step closer to being forced to declassify all U.S. intelligence related to the origin of the CCP virus or coronavirus. And that includes what happened at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. It comes amid calls for a new probe into the origin of the virus. Here are the details.
A bill involving the origin of the CCP virus passed the Senate Wednesday night unanimously. It requires the Director of National Intelligence to declassify all American intelligence on the alleged links between the Wuhan Institute of Virology and the origin of the virus. Republican Senator Josh Hawley introduced it, and Senator Mike Braun co-sponsored it.
Look at what our country has gone through. Been a year and a quarter, and it has ravaged not only the United States, but the world. And why, in the sake of simple transparency, wouldn't we want to get to the root cause of it?
If the bill becomes law, it may declassify documents on the Wuhan lab in connection with the People's Liberation Army. Also, any research on coronaviruses at the Wuhan lab prior to the outbreak. This comes as new calls for a probe into the origin of the CCP virus ramp up. That's as concerns grow about the possibility of the pandemic starting from a lab accident. HHS Secretary Javier Becerra called for the WHO to launch a transparent second phase of the investigation. That was at the 74th World Health Assembly. Phase 2 of the COVID origin study must be launched with terms of reference that are transparent, science-based, and give international experts the independence to fully assess the source of the virus and the early days of the outbreak. Senator Braun told Fox News he questioned Dr. Fauci on why the U.S. would turn to the WHO for answers on the origin of the virus. The WHO parroted CCP talking points at the time of the outbreak, such as denying human-to-human transmission and calling it racist to consider that the virus originated in China. Braun also questioned why the U.S. would rely on the Chinese communist regime for answers, given the CCP's lack of transparency.
The White House top man in Asia says U.S. China relations are more intensely competitive now, and the era of engagement is over. This as President Biden pushes the intelligence community to find out more about the origins of the CCP virus.
President Biden's Indo-Pacific coordinator, Kurt Campbell, commented on U.S.-China relations on Wednesday, saying the period that was broadly described as engagement has come to an end. He goes on to say that U.S. policy towards China will now operate under a new set of strategic parameters and that the dominant paradigm is going to be competition. Starting from the 1970s, multiple U.S. administrations adopted the engagement strategy towards China. They were hoping to influence China through cooperation in trade and other areas and make China democratic that way. Campbell says the shift in U.S. policy is largely due to Chinese Communist Party leader Xi Jinping's policies. Beijing is pushing its hard power more forcibly. He gives some examples, including Beijing's border clashes with India, economic campaigns against Australia, and the rise of wolf warrior diplomacy. Facing challenges from Beijing, Campbell argues the best way is to work with allies, partners, and friends. He says the U.S. is looking to convene an in-person meeting this fall for leaders of the Quad countries. That's Australia, India, and Japan. They will focus on infrastructure.
In an apparent display of tit-for-tat diplomacy, the Chinese regime evens the score on America's recent sanctions. On Wednesday, the Chinese Foreign Ministry announced sanctions on former commissioner of the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom, Johnnie Moore. This comes after the U.S. sanctioned a Chinese official for persecuting adherents of the Falun Gong spiritual practice. Beijing is banning Moore from entering China, Hong Kong, and Macau. Other than saying this is a response to U.S. sanctions, Beijing didn't say in detail why they targeted this particular individual. But Moore says it is an honor to be sanctioned by the Chinese Communist Party for giving my voice to the Uyghur Muslims, Christians, Tibetan Buddhists, and countless others the CCP tries to silence. Moore is an evangelical leader and also the president of U.S.-based organization Congress of Christian Leaders. In America's recent Religious Freedom Report, Moore took a strong tone in criticizing Beijing. He said there is no question that China is the world's foremost violator of human rights and religious freedom. It cannot be compared to any other country in the world. The report cited the Chinese regime's abuses toward Christians, Uyghur Muslims, Falun Gong practitioners, and Tibetan Buddhists. Investment between the U.S. and China drops to its lowest point since 2009. A new report shows it's only a fraction of what it was back in 2016. The plunge has largely been blamed on worsening U.S.-China relations, both amid the pandemic and following the trade war. A report by New York-based research institute the Rhodium Group and the National Committee on U.S.-China Relations details the situation. It shows only about $16 billion flowed between China and the U.S. in 2020. That's down from $70 billion in 2016. U.S. capital investment in China also dropped to a 16-year low, coming in at $8.7 billion. At the same time, Chinese investment in the U.S. rose to $7.2 billion in 2020. But that's still much less than the $45 billion invested in 2016. President Biden has kept many U.S. tariffs in place on Chinese goods, put in place by former President Trump. Many of the Chinese companies blacklisted from U.S. markets under Trump are also still banned. Coming up, more financial crackdowns on Hong Kong media tycoon Jimmy Lai. Beijing-controlled Hong Kong authorities are threatening two major banks with jail time if they deal with Lai's local accounts. More on that after the break.
Trends may be fleeting, but values are timeless. We now bring you this new clothing brand with classic design and luxurious comfort. It's our way of sharing hope and inspiration from the world of Shenyun. We bring you Shenyun Dancer. Wear it with honor.
Hong Kong authorities are carrying out more financial crackdowns on media tycoon Jimmy Lai. They are threatening two major banks with up to 7 years in jail if they deal with Lai's local accounts. This, according to documents Reuters saw. Gloria Tsu reports.
The Hong Kong government has taken further steps in cracking down on media tycoon and staunch Beijing critic Jimmy Lai. According to a Reuters exclusive on Thursday, it's warned HSBC and Citibank to stay away from his financial accounts. The city security chief sent letters to Lai, as well as branches of HSBC and Citibank earlier this month, threatening the banks with up to 7 years in jail for any who deal with the media tycoon's local accounts. The news comes after Hong Kong authorities froze Lai's majority stake in his media company Next Digital and 3 other accounts under China's sweeping national security law for the city. It could hamper any attempt by the democracy activist to move offshore assets back home and prop up Next Digital's troubled Apple Daily tabloid. And it's raised fears that the national security law could now be extending its reach into banking and wealth management. Lai could not be reached for comment. HSBC declined to comment, while Citibank said it could not comment on individuals' accounts. It also comes on the eve of Lai's sentencing for charges related to an unauthorized assembly on China's National Day in 2019. Lai was previously sentenced to 14 months in prison for participating in unauthorized assemblies earlier that year at the height of Hong Kong's anti-government protests. Lai is among the most high-profile arrests made under the security law so far, facing 3 charges, including collusion with a foreign country.
Among thousands of Chinese scientists, a hybrid rice specialist is receiving some very special treatments from Beijing. The Chinese regime is going as far as arresting people for criticizing him after his death.
Famous Chinese scientist Yuan Longping died on Saturday after spending decades researching hybrid rice. Chinese state-run media hail him as the father of hybrid rice. Some Chinese netizens are commenting on his passing. A Beijing dissident tells U.S. media Radio Free Asia most people commenting are rational folks and don't target Yuan Longping personally. It's just that people don't like to see how authorities idolize him and deify him, making it seem like the Chinese people will starve without him. The regime arrested at least 7 netizens in 5 Chinese regions, including Beijing, for posting critical opinions about Yuan on social media. One netizen said on Chinese messaging app WeChat that Yuan genetically modified rice and therefore turned the crops into slaves. The comment seems to hint at authoritarian rule. Some netizens commenting on Chinese social media platform Weibo are also facing penalties. The social media platform announced on Monday that it would block dozens of accounts permanently. The notice says Weibo has zero tolerance for people who distort, defame, or deny Yuan's heroism. Yuan has supported the communist regime as a non-party member for a long time, and he has been a member of a high-level CCP committee. Chinese state-run media tout him as a national hero and claim that Yuan saved hundreds of millions of people around the world by increasing rice production. Even CCP head Xi Jinping himself is singing Yuan's praises. Following Yuan's death, Xi asked Communist Party members, cadres, and scientists to learn from Yuan.
The CCP toots Yuan Longping as the world's rescuer. That's to divert public attention. It sounds as if the Great Chinese Famine never happened and no one died from it, and the Communist Party saved people again. By the way, Yuan Longping decided to do research in agriculture because people starved to death during the Great Famine.
The Great Chinese Famine started in 1959 and lasted for 3 years when Mao Zedong ruled China. Historians largely believe that Mao's failed policies led to the disaster. Years ago, Yuan recalled what happened during the famine in an interview.
During those 3 years, we struggled a lot in Hunan province. I saw with my own eyes 5 people that died of hunger. They were lying on the farmland, by the curb, and under bridges. Tens of millions of people starved to death.
Beijing has never released the death toll of the Great Famine, but various historians estimate that the death toll ranges from 20 million to 55 million.
Chinese authorities denied Australian diplomats entry to the trial of an Australian citizen on Thursday. Beijing charged Chinese-born Australian writer Yang Henjun with espionage. He was a political writer and novelist, and Beijing has been detaining him for over 2 years. The Australian ambassador to China attempted to enter the court in Beijing in line with a consular pact.
Unfortunately, we've just been denied entry to the court. The reason given was because of the pandemic situation, but the Foreign Ministry has also told us that it's because it's a national security case, therefore we're not permitted to attend the trial.
The ambassador said the case lacks of transparency and it is an instance of arbitrary detention. Chinese authorities have not released any details about the case, such as which agency Yang allegedly worked for. If convicted, Yang could face at least 10 years in prison. The closed-door trial is expected to further worsen relations between the two countries. Chinese authorities detained Yang in early 2019 at a major Chinese airport. Yang was an influential blogger and has written articles calling for democracy in China. Chinese authorities allegedly tortured and interrogated Yang hundreds of times while in detention. Tensions are rising between China and Europe. This as an investment agreement between the two regions remained frozen. NTD France's correspondent David Vives met with a former intelligence service director who told us more about this topic.
On May 20th, the European Parliament stopped an investment pact with China, which would have solidified Beijing as a trusted trading partner. But now they won't lift the freeze until Beijing lifts sanctions against EU politicians. China sanctioned European politicians, think tanks, and other diplomatic bodies on March 10th. This was in response to Western sanctions against the Chinese for their treatment of Uyghur Muslims. In a move to salvage the deal, China's Commerce Minister called the front on Thursday. But a week after the EU froze the agreement with China, it looks like not much has changed. On top of this, Lithuania's relationship with the regime seems to be fracturing as well. On May 22nd, Lithuania said quit a cooperation forum with China, calling it divisive. They urged other European Union members to do the same. Former Intelligence Service Director Alain Juillet speaks on this relationship with China.
It is a rude awakening for European countries who understand they now need to change their policies toward China.
He says the outcomes of Chinese investments in Europe may not be what they seem.
China never gives gifts. China comes and says, no one wants to help you, we're going to help you. While it sounds kind, it's very dangerous. The port of Pirée in Greece, main port in Greece, is managed by China, and others will follow. The port of Pirée, which we thought it would be something like a cooperation, but now it has turned 100% Chinese, and it's now something completely different.
He mentions another project with China that didn't turn out as expected.
France, Germany, and Japan offered to use their train technologies to help build high-speed trains for China. But later on, Chinese officials said they didn't need it. It seems they got enough information to be able to build their own train. Looking back, these three countries felt that China got this information from their technology. I can tell you a lot of people are seeing China in a new light.
If geopolitical tensions are resolved, the currently halted agreement will still need to be ratified by European countries. But in the words of a EU Parliament member from Germany, the agreement now remains in the fridge. David Vives, NTD News, Paris.
UK trade has shifted. China is now the UK's biggest importer, replacing Germany. NTD's Patrick Hayden breaks it down.
China is now the biggest importer into the UK. It replaces Germany. The Office of National Statistics, or ONS, says from 2018 to the first quarter of this year, goods imported from China rose 66%. That's an increase of nearly £17 billion. In the same period, German imports dropped by about a quarter to £12.5 billion. The pandemic increased the demand for Chinese goods like PPE. And last year, China imported more electrical devices and clothing into the UK. China was the first major economy to see growth during 2020. EU trade was also disrupted due to Brexit. The ONS says German imports to the UK started to fall back in April 2019. Germany's motor industry has also slumped since the pandemic led to fewer imports. Patrick Hayden, NTD News, London.
Hungary is aligning itself closer and closer with the Chinese regime in recent years. Earlier this year, the free world united to sanction Beijing over its human rights abuse in Xinjiang. But in response, the Hungarian foreign minister accused the EU, the U.S., the UK, and Canada of being pointless, self-aggrandizing, and harmful. Hungary was the only EU country against the sanctions. Between March and May, Hungary blocked the EU's efforts to sanction and condemn the CCP 4 times. CCP leader Xi Jinping also seems to be pleased with Hungary. He called Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban in April to praise him personally. Orban introduced China's Belt and Road Initiative, or BRI, to his country in 2015. It was the first European nation to embrace the controversial project. Many see the project as Beijing's way of gaining influence across the globe. Hungary has taken in what Beijing sells, from a high-speed railway, machinery, chemical manufacturing, and transportation to Chinese education, movies, and even CCP-virus vaccines. Even the official BRI website calls Hungary the pioneer of Belt and Road. The infrastructure program has led to Hungary's heavy debts. Hungary borrowed $2.4 billion from China to update its railway, $1.6 billion to construct a Chinese university's Budapest campus, $426 million for the Hungarian electricity company, and much more. By April 2019, China had invested $4.5 billion in Hungary. That's the highest in Europe. Hungarian critics say the loan on the railway project will generate interests between $500 to $800 million. An assistant professor at Hungary's University of Pécs says it will take between 130 and 2,400 years to make the project profitable for Hungary. And that's all for today's China in Focus. But before you go, China in Focus is partnering with the Epoch Times newspaper on their new subscription-based streaming platform, Epoch TV. That's where you can watch our exclusive special reports like this one every Friday night. In them, we'll explore questions like how China lures in foreign companies to steal their technology, how the Chinese regime is actively collecting health data on people around the world, how the ancient Chinese philosophy of good governance differs from the current-day communist regime, and much more. Be sure to check out these investigative episodes by clicking on the link in the description down below. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you really want to understand what's happening with China. You can still watch our Monday to Thursday episodes for free on YouTube, NTD Cable TV, the NTD website, and the Epoch TV website. In our next special report this Friday, we will discuss Beijing's ambition over one of the most sensitive types of data, DNA. The Chinese Communist Party is allegedly collecting DNA around the world. That is through a state-linked company offering COVID-19 testing assistance to other countries, granting it access to people's biometric data.
They are the ultimate company that shows connectivity to both the communist state as well as the military apparatus.
The company has been working with the Chinese military as Beijing looks to weaponize artificial intelligence and gene editing, and not just for domestic control, but also to further its global ambitions.
China has 2 million strong in its military, and it's trying to make them stronger through gene editing.
I hope that our actions can surpass the industrial age and allow China to lead the world for the next 100 years of development.
How far has China already gotten in building its genetic data trove, and what would its success mean for the world? We explore these questions and more in a new special report on China's DNA ambitions. Thanks for watching, and see you tomorrow.